Battlefield just dropped their 2026 roadmap, and if you're a Battle Royale player, there's some good stuff in here, but also some pretty big question marks. So I went through the whole video, and I wanted to share my biggest takeaways, what actually matters for BR players, and what I think they're still missing. Let's start with probably the biggest win. Solos is finally coming in Season 3. Now, personally, I'm not a huge Solos player, but this is a big deal for Redsec. There are a lot of players who prefer the solo experience who haven't been able to experience this BR in the way they prefer yet. For solo players right now, you're filling in duos or squads. And for those who have played both as a fill and with a full squad of people that you know, it is a massive difference in the playing experience. The amount of coordination that you can get when playing with randoms is little to none unless you get really lucky with the people that you're matched up with, versus when you're playing, just as a solo, you're fully in control of your destiny. And I think that's a big thing for those that don't have folks that they want to play with or prefer to play solo. What I'm hoping to see out of this change is that it could bring some new players into the game who didn't want to compromise their preferred type of play. I've heard good things about the play test, but I am curious to see how the meta shakes out in solos compared to duos and squads. One thing I'm especially interested in is seeing how they go about handling the vehicles and the contracts. Personally, one thing I'd like to see in solos is maybe reducing the distance that you need to travel to complete a contract. Solos is the most unforgiving mode in BR regardless which one you're playing, so having players need to cross hundreds of meters in the early game for some XP and a strike package could be a potentially frustrating experience. Similarly, one thing I'd like them to take a look at is vehicles. So with the transport heli, I just think that has a little too much health for solos especially, and one player can't realistically deal with it very easily. I could see a good pilot from multiplayer jumping into Redsec, grabbing one of those transport helicopters, and just terrorizing the early game lobbies with it. So I'd like to see them replace that with the Little Bird if possible, or even just remove the spawns themselves. I do want to see that mobility stay because I think it is an important part of the experience, but I think that can be achieved with just the Little Bird itself, where you're not focusing on the deadliness of the helicopter and the actual health pool that it has. But adding solos brings up another question. Where's trios? The fact that this game didn't launch with solos, duos, trios, and quads for me was a huge miss. I'm not sure why it took this long for them to add solos, but I do hope it gives them the courage to at least look into adding trios as well, because I've had quite a few times where we have 3 people online and we have to choose between filling in quads or playing multiplayer. For some reason, across multiple Battle Royale games, trios is the one that receives the least amount of love. I'm assuming that's because it's the least played. But last I checked, you can't play trios in PUBG, and Warzone usually relegates trios to be a ranked only mode. Adding trios could give groups of friends with varied skill levels a casual place to play and a home in Redsec. The problem now is that since they launched the game in an incomplete state, the player base may not be large enough to accommodate all those different queues. And unfortunately, worse than that, the potential audience that you could have gained by having these modes available at launch may not be paying attention anymore because they've already tried the buggy mess that was Redsec at launch and tuned out. On the competitive side, the developers also mentioned that they would be bringing ranked to Battle Royale. I know this is something that a lot of dedicated players have been clamoring for, so I'm really happy to see them finally make a push to bring this to life. As someone who primarily plays duos, I probably won't get a ton out of it since it's just quads to start, but I am glad that it's at least an option now. The other benefit of adding ranked into this mode is that now players who have been grinding finally have something to work towards and push for, which they haven't really had up until this point. While my current season of life does not allow me to grind as much as I did in the past, I'm happy that players who have the time and motivation to do that finally have their opportunity. Similarly, leaderboards are being added to the game, and I'm not going to lie, I'm actually really excited about this. This is a great change, and I do hope that there will be a way to drill down into Battle Royale specific categories. For example, how do your duo stats stack up via wins, win percentage, average placement, kills per match, kills per game? You get the idea. With the same thing for quads and solos. I'd love to see them add a top X% so players can get an idea of how they stack up to players in their region or even the world. This type of leaderboard existing in PUBG is exactly what motivated me to keep pushing to improve my gameplay in the genre, and I hope that other players will be able to scratch that same itch here. If I had to guess, we probably aren't going to get all those features, especially for Redsec, but a man can dream. Finally, on the competitive side, the Elite Series is confirmed to be on the way and back in Battle Royale. I personally love this idea and wish it was a thing back when I was in college and had a lot more time to play the games, because I would be all over this. Anyone can sign up and grind their way to the top to get into the top tier league, and that's just something I wish was available across other games in esports. Okay, so that was just Season 3. But moving on, Season 4 will be all about Naval Combat. As someone that really enjoys the Battlefield 6 multiplayer experience as well as Redsec, I'm excited for all the changes coming to multiplayer with new maps and vehicles. But I would love some more information as to how this will apply to Redsec itself. They mentioned that their new map is one of the biggest in the series, and looking at it from a top-down perspective, it looks massive. I'd love to see them potentially take these assets or even the maps themselves, potentially bring them together and make another Battle Royale experience, even if it means that the player count needs to drop to the size of the map. Playing Redsec with a whole new biome will be a great change of pace to keep the game fresh, but I'm not holding my breath that they'll actually do it. They said Naval Combat will be coming to multiplayer and Redsec in the trailer, but I'm worried by that they just mean that they're going to add the new naval vehicle boat into the map. The last thing that they mentioned on the BR side is proximity chat, and while they didn't say exactly when this is coming to the game, it is at least confirmed to be shipping sometime in 2026. I'm kind of mixed on this one. Like on paper, I think it's a cool idea. Proximity chat in BR can be really fun. You get those random moments, people talking mid-fight, talking your trash, stuff like that. But I also think it depends a lot on how they implement it. Because if you're playing in a full squad, honestly, this doesn't really change much. Most people play in Discord or party chat anyway, so you're only using proximity chat if you're messing around with other teams. But for people playing with randoms, it's a completely different story. That's their only way to communicate. So now you're in a situation where you're trying to talk to your teammates and you might just be giving away your position to another team without realizing it. And we already talked about how big the gap is for playing with a squad versus playing with randoms. And this kind of feels like it could make that gap even bigger. The other thing I'm thinking about is the range of the chat itself. If it's anything like Warzone, I think that range could be way too big. Like you're hearing people from distances where realistically you would never hear them in real life, and at that point it stops feeling like a cool feature and more like a disadvantage. So for me it comes down to two things. One, keep the range pretty tight, and two, hopefully there's some kind of option where you can choose between squad only chat and proximity chat. Otherwise, I do think this ends up hurting people who are already playing at the biggest disadvantage, which is players running with randoms. So yeah, cool idea. I just don't know if it actually improves the core BR experience that much unless they get it right. Otherwise, it's just kind of gimmicky. Cool, and that just about wraps it up for all the stuff I wanted to talk about with Battle Royale and Redsec. Overall, I do think there are some good nuggets in here, and as someone who really enjoys the multiplayer experience, I'm pretty excited for a lot of that content on that side, but from a Battle Royale and Redsec perspective, I'm a little let down. There just really wasn't that much focus on Redsec in this roadmap, and my biggest concern right now is I just don't know if they're doing enough to keep the mode fresh, or to grow the player base from where it's at. Because honestly, I think the game is in one of the best states it's been since launch. There's been a lot of good improvements, more loot across the map, armor drops, the colored pings, and all those updates, even adding new POIs. I just don't think it's been enough. Like, we got one new POI, and it's fine. I don't love the underground base personally. It just turns into kind of a cluster with all the zip lines, especially around solar. And I'd much rather see more above ground POIs, something that actually changes how the map plays and looks from above. So yeah, I like the direction. I just don't think it's enough yet to really move the needle or things forward for BR, but that's just my take. I'm curious to hear what you guys think and how you're feeling about the roadmap. And what do you want to see added to Redsec in 2026? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the final circle.